This is Brighton's John Street Police Station, currently undergoing some building work. Apparently it's the second busiest police station in the entire UK. According to who? Well, very successful local crime writer Peter James, for starters, as well as, well, pretty much nobody else. For once, Fact Me Up has done a little bit of research and we couldn't find anywhere, online or elsewhere, that could corroborate this claim. Nowhere that said this or anywhere else was the second busiest, nowhere that said where the first busiest police station in the UK was, or even on what basis, open cases, walk-ins, call-outs, etc., busiest is decided. We asked Sussex Police's press office, they didn't get back to us. We asked Peter James, he actually replied almost immediately with the following statement.
Hi Mr. Adam, I know this was the case a few years ago and I believe that Blackpool was the busiest then. I would imagine things have changed with the closing of many police stations. UK police forces now work with fewer stations, but they're bigger. The statistic included calls, people going to the station, crimes and public order issues. I'm not sure if it's still second, but Brighton is still one of the busiest. Lots of luck with your YouTube channel, Peter James.
Thank you, Peter. This would suggest that these statistics are based on per capita crimes or the particular busiest times of the year, because if you're looking at places that have the highest number of non-residents, day trippers as victims or perpetrators of crime, particularly at certain times, e.g. summer bank holidays, where but Blackpool and Brighton would come out on top. However, this episode of Fact Me Up isn't about Brighton Police today, it's about Brighton Police from off of history. Roll titles. Like most urban areas in the UK, Brighton initially had a system of voluntary town watchmen who were eminently bribable and unreliable. The first professional police force, as we understand that term today, in Brighton began in 1838 and was based here in the town hall, which had only opened a few years earlier. Despite becoming increasingly unfit for purpose in the 20th century, the police station remained based here until the opening of John Street Station in 1965. Today, much of the original police station, particularly the cells, are a museum that free guided tours are offered of. So naturally enough, we went on one. Pictures now.
This guy looks a bit peaky. You okay there, mate? There's a Tardix and a dolphin. Feels like I'm being watched.
Last week's episode featured one Count Eric Stenbock, who died whilst trying to hit his stepfather with a fire poker. It seems that fire pokers and death were often intertwined in 19th century Brighton. On the 13th of March 1844, a petty criminal named John Lawrence stole a carpet from Caleb Collins Drapers at 47 St James's Street, which is now this. Essentially, at the moment, nothing. Memo to Victorian-era petty criminals. Carpets are heavy. So it's no surprise that Lawrence was apprehended by someone from the shop just round the corner here in Chapel Street. Lawrence was taken to the police station here whilst awaiting the arrival of witnesses. For some reason he was left unrestrained and used the opportunity to pick up a fire poker and strike Henry Solomon round the head with it. Thus Solomon, Brighton's first Chief Constable, became the first and only Chief Constable in British history to be murdered whilst on duty. Lawrence meanwhile was hanged at Horsham Prison 3 weeks later.
Random sepia interlude.
1933 saw two big innovations introduced for Brighton's police force. The first was the introduction of white helmets, primarily for those officers working on the seafront. It was said they reflected the heat better, but to be honest, it was mostly a tourist gimmick. The helmets were done away with at the start of World War II. They were seen as too much of an obvious target for the passing Luftwaffe, but they returned in 1952 before being finally got rid of completely in 1968. That was the year the Beatles released the White Album. Is that a coincidence? Well, obviously yes. In fact, it's because 1968 was the year that the Brighton, Eastbourne, Hastings, East Sussex and West Sussex forces were combined into one Sussex constabulary. They didn't think it was fair for only Brighton police to have white helmets, and they couldn't afford to buy them for everyone, so they got rid of them. Serving Brighton officers were given the opportunity to buy their helmets for 30 shillings, £1.50, worth the equivalent of £25 in today's money. It would have been a good investment, as they currently go on eBay for a couple of £100. Bonus mini fact, the first Hove police station, or Brunswick Town police station as it was probably called at the time, was here. When it became a pub, it adopted the name the Station Inn in honour of that, but so many tourists rang up asking for train times, they eventually had to switch to the current name, Bow Street Runner. 1933 saw an even bigger innovation as Brighton became the first police force in the world to be issued with personal radios.
Designed by local inventor Colin Begbie,
these only worked one way. An operator in the basement of the town hall could contact the 30 officers issued with sets, but the officers would then have to find a police box with a telephone in order to call back in. Although police forces from around the world came to view the system in operation, the outbreak of World War II saw the frequency being requisitioned by the military and the system scrapped. It wouldn't be until the arrival of a county-wide police force that Brighton got their radios back. Interestingly enough, every police force in the UK is scrapping their radios by the end of 2018 and moving over to the EE mobile phone network, which seems a bit of an odd idea when you have places such as George Street in Hove, a road of shops, pubs and bookies that police are often called out to, with very, very patchy EE reception. That's all we've got time for, but there's so much we haven't covered, such as racecourse gangs, corrupt chief constables, that time Trousers Danny rode a polar bear up Hanover Hill. We'll maybe have to do another episode about Brighton's boys and girls and non-binaries in blue. But until then, Charlie Yankee Alpha.
Next week on Fact Me Up, something is Rottingdean in the state of Sussex. That's a play on Hamlet, which is also a play.